Serena, you are a medical student in Galway, in NUIG. Have you encountered any backlash to your views, any opposition? And if so, how have you dealt with that?
I think, first of all, being a pro-life medical student itself comes with this great sense of obligation to take a stand for the unborn, because the basic principle of medicine itself is to protect human life and to not end it. So when something like abortion completely goes against that, it's quite difficult for medical students and people in the medical profession to come forward and speak about it. So me personally, I haven't had any clinical experience with abortion procedures or anything, because I'll be going into that next year in my third year. But as a second year, I've had a couple of medical ethics lectures. So as part of our professionalism module, we have medical ethics lectures, and one such lecture we had was on termination of pregnancy. And as expected, it was quite biased and quite one-sided. But so it is quite difficult sitting in a class of 200 medical students and having a differing opinion to what you're being taught, essentially. Having to think, is this the way I should be thinking? Having to doubt yourself as a medical student. So that can be challenging at times. And I think when I go into clinicals, there will be more of a challenge. There will be a challenge of facing discrimination, maybe for my beliefs. Maybe I could be put in a position where I would be asked to assist in an abortion or participate in an abortion, and I might refuse. So then this might lead me to question: Will I be accepted? Will I be treated differently for having this view? Will I be treated differently by my superiors, by my colleagues, by fellow students? Or and I think these kind of fears in medical students especially makes it difficult for us to come forward as being pro-life, and especially for doctors as well. So I think that's one of the main challenges by being a medical student. So.
I think something really important to remember there is that by you, Serena, standing up in a given moment, say, for example, when you're on a ward or when you're asked to take part in an abortion procedure, that you standing up for your beliefs can really give strength and power to other people that might be more timid and unwilling to stand up, even though they do believe in the pro-life stance. They might not if you hadn't. So it's really important, the impact, kind of knowing the impacts that you can really have in the medical discipline. I suppose, Serena, in the new abortion bill, there's no real protection of freedom of conscience of medical workers. Is that something that concerns you?
Yes, I think this is one of the biggest issues we have. Under the current law, doctors can refuse to carry out an abortion, but then they are obliged to transfer that care of the patient to another doctor, essentially hand the gun over to another. So I think when you think about that, that isn't freedom of conscience. That isn't me being able to express my right to conscientious objection. And I think that's a very dangerous area as well, because as a human being, we all have a right to freedom of conscience. So when this is targeted, it's very upsetting and very worrying. And I think when people think of referral, I think what people should understand is when a doctor refers a patient, say a patient came to the doctor for an abortion and a pro-life doctor refused to carry out the abortion, but under law, I am obliged to pass that care on to another doctor, refer that patient on to my colleague. I think what people need to understand is that by me passing on my care of that patient to another doctor, I'm not my responsibility. My responsibility over that patient has not just vanished. I am still responsible for what that doctor that I've referred to is going to do to the patient.
Mhm.
So I will share that sense of responsibility over that abortion. So I don't think it's fair on doctors and medical students and doctors in training to have that sense of responsibility over something that they don't agree with, that they don't believe in. So if I think that abortion is a violation, I should have the right to express my freedom of conscience. And I think especially in the law in Ireland, it has no protection over medical students. So medical students are in a very vulnerable position, pro-life medical students. We do not have the right to express freedom of conscience under the current law. And that's quite worrying because the abortion legislation has to make room for us. It has to consider our right to a conscientious objection as well. And
Mhm.
I think more than giving doctors rights to not perform abortion if they don't want to, I think they should have the right to refuse referral or refuse passing on information about abortion, because
Mhm.
essentially you're sharing responsibility even if you are passing it on to another doctor.